A successful marriage is made of two couples who keep falling in love again and again. The only difference is you fall in love again and again with the same person. Marriage works, marriage is beautiful. Hello and welcome to Abby's Holistic Wellness Hub. My name is Coach Blessed Abby. Today is an exciting day. It's been exactly 14 years since my husband and I walked down the aisle and said I do. It's our 14th wedding anniversary. And as I look back, I'm so grateful to God, for He has been so faithful. I look at my marriage and see a miracle, really, because we have gone through seasons that have been tough, and those that have been good, and those that have been great, and I thank God for each and every season. Gary Chapman says that marriages go through seasons. There is winter, where you feel discouraged, you just want out, you're tired, you don't even know why you came into this marriage in the first place. There is the fall, where you feel dissatisfied, unsure, you are uncertain of everything. Then comes summer, beautiful, you're comfortable, you're enjoying life, and this is where all of us want to be. And there is springtime, you're optimistic, you are open, your level of openness is up, and this is one great season to be in. And I thank God because over the last 14 years, we have gone through all these seasons, and right now I can comfortably say that we spend most of our time in the springtime and in the summertime. But it didn't come automatic. My husband has become my friend. Recently when my dad passed on, he has been a shoulder to lean on, a dear friend, and I am so grateful for having him in my life. It wasn't always like that. There are times I wondered, is this marriage a mistake? Did I sign up for this? Is this what exactly I want? But I thank God that over time we have worked it out and we are where we are. Last year, I shared on the lessons we had learned at our 13th anniversary. We talked about unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness. We talked about making God the center of our marriage. You remember the triangle where God is at the top, the wife is on one side, the husband on the other, and we all meet. And in that way, we are not going parallel directions because our meeting point, our center point is God. We talked about, our point of focus and many other things. I will link that video to this. I was just listening to it this morning and it actually inspired me. And so I will link it here. Please watch it. And we have continued to gather more and more lessons. And today I just want to share six more. Because marriage is a continuous learning journey. There is no time that you arrive and say, we are now at the point of perfection. We keep learning. So today I just want to share 6 points, 6 lessons that I have learned personally and we have learned together as a couple. And I believe this will be a blessing to somebody out there. The first lesson is that marriage is made of two great forgivers. These are couples who are willing to obey Jesus and forgive 77 times 7 times. It doesn't matter how big the offense is, they are willing to forgive. This person who you wake up with every other morning, you sleep next to every other night, is the one person that can really offend you over the years. And so if you don't have the heart to forgive, it's difficult and almost impossible to have a successful marriage. To the person who has been offended, the best thing you can do for yourself is forgive. Because forgiveness is doing yourself a favor. It doesn't do a favor to the person who offended you. It does a favor to you who has been offended. Bitterness and unforgiveness only hurt the vessel that carries it. They don't hurt the other person. Of course, some offenses are too big we perceive them to be so big, but then healing will only come from the willingness to forgive. You may have to work it out to get your healing, but forgiveness is the place to start. For you who has offended, please humble yourself. Put aside the pride and say, I am sorry. Those 3 words can heal. Just saying, I am sorry. But true forgivers who are willing to forgive each other every other day will make a great marriage. But people who want to count, the counts of since they were married, if right now I were to begin counting how many times my husband has offended me, I think we will just have what we call irreconcilable differences. We will have a ground to end our marriage. If he was to count how many times I have offended him, sometimes it's just as soon as last minute, but then we choose to forgive. So personally, I have learned that for you to have a successful marriage, you have to be 2 great forgivers. The second lesson I have learned, and this is quite interesting, is that marriage operates on the 80-20 rule. We never marry a person because they are perfect. We are not even perfect ourselves. But looking at them when we make a choice, because when you marry a person, a lady or a man, you have picked this person from billions of people in the world. And so when you pick this person, you have observed many things that you feel, I want to live with this for the rest of my life. And these are what I call the 20. Unfortunately, over time, people begin to focus on the 20 that is lacking. And this is where actually infidelity comes in, because another man or another woman comes and offers you the 20. And then you go for it. You begin to tell your spouse, you no longer do this, you no longer do that. And really, isn't it easier to try and build the 20 and add to the 80 that you already have, rather than go to the 20 which you miss out on the 80? And then with time, maybe you even chose to divorce, you realize that the 80 that I had was actually better. So your point of focus matters. Just like we said last year, what you focus on grows. I used to focus on the offenses of my husband. I would be this overcorrective person. I would want to correct him. When you did this, that was wrong. When you corrected our son, that was wrong. Of course, I still correct him and he still corrects me. But my point of focus was mostly on what is missing in him. And that did a lot of harm to our marriage. But when I changed my point of focus, when he changed his point of focus, then we became happier, because then we would focus on the 80 that we have and not the 20 that we do not have. And so what you focus on, just as we said last year, will really help your marriage to either thrive or fall. So it's important to choose your point of focus. Are you focusing on the 80 that you have or on the 20 that you do not have? That's something to really think about. The third lesson I have learned is that our childhood patterns greatly affect our marriages. We carry a lot of baggage from our childhood. You see, they say children are like monkeys. Monkey see, monkey do. And so when I came into my marriage, I wanted to do what my dad and mom used to do. I wanted my husband to be like my dad. Yet, this person has come from a very different background. And so we would have fights over very small things, because he expected me to have a certain value that was in his home, which I didn't carry from my own home. And so our childhood patterns can affect us. And the sad thing is that when we have, marriages that are not working, our children are watching. And the probability of them having marriages that are not working is very high, because family is the first school that we all go to. So they watch you. The young man watches daddy doing what he does and has this blueprint created in them that this is how a man should behave. A young woman, a young girl watches her mother and says this is how a woman ought to behave. And so what childhood patterns are you carrying? Have you worked through them? it's very important to revisit our childhood. I had to do that through my coaching program, and that helped me to revisit my childhood. It helped my husband to revisit his childhood. Some of the fights we had that were very basic actually came to an end. For example, my husband would be this person who would expect me to check if doors are closed at night. And that would really be offensive to me. And then I would be this person who expects him to do the same. When we looked at it and realized that it's because of where we came from. In his home, maybe the mom used to check the doors. In my home, my dad checked the doors. My dad used to walk out with this very big torch at midnight, check whether the thieves are there, and he would come with stories. I don't know whether they were always true, but they always made me feel that is what a man should do. That's what protection looks like. But is it always true? There's a pastor that shared with us their story. They used to fight over meat. And in the wife's home, the dad used to come with the meat. In the husband's home, the dad used to give the wife, the mother, money, and the mother would buy meat. And so the wife would stay home expecting that my husband will come home with the meat. And the husband would be so offended. How do you expect me to come home with the meat? And so they had to revisit their childhood and realize, now we ought to stop relieving our parents and form our own culture. Who comes with the meat? Any of us can actually come with the meat. So if you don't reconcile those childhood differences, you end up fighting over things that are so trivial. So what are your childhood patterns? Have you addressed them? Because they could be just the small things that cause you to fight in your marriage. The fourth lesson I have learned is that if you want to have a great marriage, begin by working on yourself. I remember when I started coaching and I went into this coaching program, I signed up and my marriage was not doing well. My marriage was actually on the rocks. And so the first session we started and I would just say, my husband this, my husband that, my husband this, my husband that. And my coach told me, Abby, stop there. For the next few weeks that we are going to work together, we are not going to talk about your husband. And really that was so disappointing because that is what I was used to with my PT parties. We would talk about our husbands and, trivialize them, say how bad they are, but that was more hurtful. It was not helping. So in the few weeks that we worked with my coach, as I sought my own healing, as I sought to change who I was to become a better person, I realized I was so messed up. I was maybe even more messed up than he was. And that change brought healing to my marriage. I healed and it brought a lot of difference in my marriage. So sometimes we ought to just focus on yourself. Sometimes we defer our joy because we are waiting for the other person to change. That's a mistake I made for a very long time. But the moment I decided, no, enough is enough, I ought to work on myself, a lot of change came. So begin to work on the person that you are as you look forward to having a better marriage. You can't change any other person. The only person you can change is you. That's a lesson I learned and it changed my life and ultimately it changed my marriage. So work on yourself as you work towards having a better marriage. The fifth lesson I have learned, and this is actually funny, every time I talk about it I just laugh. I have learned to choose my fights wisely. Young couples, and even as a young couple, we fought over very trivial things. Where has my husband placed his socks? Where has he put his shoes? Have the shoes been brushed correctly? Couples fight over how they squeeze the toothpaste. That's a very common one. And these are very trivial things. Over time, I have learned that some things are not actually worth fighting over. I had this funny specific issue with making tea in the evening. My husband loves evening tea. I don't like it. I don't like taking tea in the evening, but he would expect me to make it. Maybe actually that's what used to happen is in his home. The mother used to make tea for the dad. So when he came into our marriage, he had that expectation that my wife would make me tea. And so we would both come from work, and I would get home. Our babies were young, so I would get into preparing them to sleep, and sometimes he would go and watch, and that would really offend me. So I would go to bed, and I'm so mad, and I'm thinking, let him dare ask me for tea. And I would sleep at the edge of the bed. I'm not even sleeping, I'm preparing for war. There he comes, ask me for tea, and the war will break out in this house. It's very funny thinking about it. And I would hear the footsteps of my husband, and my heart would begin to pound so hard and very fast. And then he would come, look at me, and realize I don't want to get into this. And I would hear him walk out slowly, go to the kitchen, make his cup of tea, take it, and then come and sleep soundly. He would even snore. And I'm there still angry, waiting for war. And so one day I listened to this lady. She speaks, she's a counselor on Citizen TV on Saturday evenings. I don't know if she's still there, but I listened to her that evening, and she asked, ladies, how many minutes does it really take to make that one cup of tea and then go to bed in peace? And since that day, I realized that tea can actually cook as I prepare the children. And I just started preparing the tea. And it brought change, because without even telling him, he started helping me. So that's why I say the change that happens in you changes the other person. So he definitely felt that his needs have been met. And with that, he reciprocated by coming to help. But my war attitude was not gaining me anything. So choose your fights wisely. What exactly are you fighting about? Is it worth all the effort? Is it worth putting all your energy in it? That's one thing I have learned, and it has saved me a lot of trouble. And I'm so grateful. If socks are placed in a place I don't like, I just pick them, put them in the right place, and there is no war. Pastor Mildred Okonkwo from Nigeria said, many women try to love their children and train their husbands. But then she advises, love your husband and train your children. That if your children placed the socks all over, you go picking them and you don't complain. But if your husband did the same, you complain and bring up a fight. Some fights are not worth fighting. And that's a big lesson I have learned. I hope that helps you too. The sixth and the final lesson I have learned is that marriage never works on autopilot. Of course, I said this last year and I'm saying it again because it's very important. Sometimes we come into marriage thinking that things will work out. We'll just be comfortable and things will work out. It takes a conversation, it takes communication, it takes hard work to make a marriage work. It takes prayer. Of course, it takes praying to God and asking Him for wisdom. But you cannot stay on autopilot. You can't expect things to move on their own and have a perfect marriage. So it's very important to keep working on your marriage. Over time, my husband and I have learned that we have to talk about issues. We can't just ignore them and expect them to solve, to get solved on their own. And that has really helped us. I want to invite you to a marriage program we are running with my fellow Coach Mwalimu. He was the keynote speaker in my anniversary celebrations. This runs on 6th, 7th, and 8th of November. We are looking at healing hearts and rebuilding marriage bonds. Have you lost your spark in marriage? Have you lost your joy in marriage? Are you operating in the winter and the fall? Are you struggling to forgive? Are you struggling with childhood patterns that are killing your marriage slowly but sure? One thing I know is that marriage works. Marriage is beautiful. Everything God made, He looked at it and said, "This is beautiful." And so is marriage. You can work out your marriage. Before you decide to pack your things and go, before you decide to throw in a towel, give yourself a chance, give your marriage a chance, give your spouse a chance. Out of the worst marriages come out the best. Look at everyone who speaks about marriage counselors, speakers who speak about marriage, and they come out and are vulnerable. They will tell you, "We were almost divorcing. It's a miracle that our marriage still exists." When people say, "We've been married for the last 50 years, and they are open with you, they will tell you, "We have fought." You listen to Joyce Meyer. She says, "I was one of the worst wives. My husband has been married to several versions of me." And that happens to all of us. I wrote yesterday on my Facebook page that a successful marriage is made of two couples who keep falling in love again and again. The only difference is you fall in love again and again with the same person. Coach Mwalimu will share with you the wisdom he has gathered in the last 32 years he's been married. That's rich. I also look forward to learning from such people. He's been a speaker at many marriage conferences in church. He has spoken to us, to me also as a person, and to my marriage, and he's somebody you want to tag along to hear what he has to say. You've just had a snippet of what I have learned in the last 14 years. Come, let's share more. Of course, there we will be more open, sharing with you what have been our struggles and what have been our wins. And you get to learn more from us, and we learn more from each other. You see, we are also learning, so we get to learn from you too. I end this with a quote, the same quote I ended it last year, from the same book that I wrote. Couples with the strongest marriages are not the ones who have never had a reason to give up. They are the ones who refused to give up through it. They kept going and chose that their story would be a story of victory, one that God is at the center of it all. So if you're fighting, don't give up. Come and try to see what is on the other side of our marriage. Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure having you here. If you like what we are saying, please leave us that thumbs up. Marriage is this institution under war, and so you may know several marriages that are drifting, that couples are drifting apart. Please share with them. You never know, you may just save a marriage. Please comment, share what stood out for you in this video in the comment section. And also subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, join the family, and subscribe to this channel. Marriage works. Marriage is beautiful. Till another time, God bless you.